Abby tried to concentrate on her drawing, but she was distracted. Her gaze kept drifting up from her pad. Her attention was drawn to the drawer that held the Freddy's badge. Abby turned and looked down the hall, towards her brother's room. The door was open, and she could hear a woman's voice, faint, just a mother. Abby couldn't make out the woman's word. It sounded like Mike was on his computer. Abby turned toward the drawer, abandoning her artwork. She stood, stepped over the drawer, and looked down at it. Okay, so maybe the badge was pretty cool. Just because her stupid brother had tried to give it to her to make up for being mean the night before didn't mean the badge wasn't worth having. Abby glanced at the drawer handle and pull. The drawer didn't open. She tried again, but the drawer was jammed. That wasn't something new. Most of the kitchen drawers got stuck regularly. Usually if you just jiggle them. Abby tried that. She pulled again. Nope. The drawer was shut tight. Abby turned and braced herself against the side of the counter. She thought that might give her something to push off so she could pull with more oomph. She grabbed the handle and tried again. The news report of Mike's laptop screen was stepping into the lobby that was both the same and totally different from the one Mike knew. The floor was a friendly old black and white checkerboard. The walls were red and white in stripe. Freddy's posters, red vanilla benches. Beyond these touchstones, however, the lobby was very different. From one thing, it was bright, lit up with brilliant white light, and it was crowded. The blonde reporter stepped into the foot of the coaster and informed, "Crush." At first, caught up at the video, Mike thought the sound had come from his screen. He quickly realized, though, that the racket wasn't recorded, it was real. What the hell was that? He asked out loud. Immediately an answer put him in motion. Abby, he thought. Mike quickly set aside his laptop. He jumped up and ran out to his room. It took Mike only seconds to trot down the hallway. In those seconds, his mind suggested a number of possible catastrophe. He ignored the image and burst into the kitchen. There, he stopped and looked at the floor. The first thing Mike saw on the floor was an upside-down John drawer. It lay in an angle against the battered old flashlight. Around the drawer, an explosion of mysterious items, old pens, tacks, scraps of paper, and half-empty stood of threads. A pair of scissors, a couple old business cards, several takeout menus, a purple-haired troll, and a fake Freddy Fazbear security badge was scattered across the kitchen's faded green aluminum. Abby was standing over the mess. Mike opened his mouth to yell at her for being careful, but when he saw the look at her face and when she held her hand, his words dissolved in his head. Oh man, Mike thought. Missing its cover page, the fixed staple packet of paper that Abby clutched was the custody proposal Jane had given Mike. Clearly, given the crumbled, disseminated expression of Abby's face, she read the custody summon heaters. He never seen her look so hurt. Why didn't I stash that in my bedroom? Mike asked himself. Stupid. I made a mess, Abby said. Sorry. It's okay, Mike said. The mess was beside the point. How was he supposed to handle this? I'm not mad, Mike said. He held a hand. Can I have that? Abby hesitated. Then she held out the packet of paper. Mike took the paper, wanting very badly to beat himself over the head with them. Look, Mike said. They're just papers. They don't mean anything. Abby wrinkled her nose. She wasn't falling for that. Then why do you have them? She asked. It's complicated. Abby gave him an oh come on look. Mike tried again. Your Aunt Jane. I hate her. Abby erupted. She stomped her foot and crunched one of the old pens lying next to the crashed drawer. She smells like cigars. Abby made a something stinks face. And she's mean, she added. In spite of the seriousness of the situation, Mike couldn't help himself. He cracked a smile. Abby stomped her foot again. This time, her heel narrowed, missing the poor troll. Stop smiling, Abby commanded. It's not funny. Mike kept smiling. I know. It's just that there's something we can finally agree on. He was trying to lighten the room, but Abby wasn't having it. You're going to give me away, Abby asked. Her voice was small, furrowed. How do I answer that? Mike asked himself. How could he explain the complexity of the situation to a 10-year-old? 3 sharp raps on his front doors saved Mike from dealing with the issue. Attempting to hide the relief, Mike turned and strode towards the door. He pulled it open, and his mouth gaped even further opening than the door. Vanessa? Mike couldn't have been more surprised if he found the news report of the 80s hair on his front porch. The avalanche questions rushed through Mike's head. What was Vanessa doing here? How did she even know where he lived? Was this official business? Was he some kind of trouble? He looked past Vanessa, who was in full uniform, and eyed her black and white cruiser, which was parked in the street beyond his rolling heap. His poor car looked like it was trying to sink down the gravel drive, humiliated by the comparison of its junkyard appearance next to the cruiser's sleek shine paint and chrome. "Hey, Mike," Vanessa said lightly. It was the friendly Vanessa speaking. She didn't sound official yet. Mike couldn't get his tongue to work. Vanessa didn't seem to mind. She looked past Mike's shoulder, and her eyes widened in obvious surprise. "And hello." Mike glanced back and watched his sister trip forward. He returned his attention to Vanessa and pulled the door farther open. "Come in?" he asked. Vanessa hesitated, but then stepped through the doorway. She didn't come all the way in, though. She stood in the doorway, blocking it so he couldn't close the door. He shrugged. It was warm outside. Mike felt Abby came up behind him. He looked down and watched her lean around him to eye Vanessa. Mike engaged his tongue. "Vanessa," he said, "this is Abby." "Abby?" "Vanessa." "Hello, Abby," Vanessa said, smiling. Mike thought the smile looked a little strained. "Mike didn't tell me he had a daughter," Vanessa said. Abby made a stink face. "Gross." "She's my sister," Mike explained. Vanessa's smile relaxed into something more genuine. "Ah, well, he didn't tell me he had a sister either." Vanessa pointed at Abby. "Love your overalls," she said. She gave Abby a thumbs up. "Are you here to arrest Mike?" Abby asked. Vanessa put her hand in her utility belt. She pulled her brows towards a stern frown. "Why?" he asked. "What did he do?" Abby stepped out from behind Mike. She sighed dramatically and threw her hands out. "Where do I start?" Abby watched Vanessa pull her lips together to suppress a smile. "Hey, Abby," Mike said to his sister, "why don't you go play in your room? I'm going to talk with Vanessa, and then we can clean up the mess in the kitchen." Abby looked from Mike to Vanessa and back again to Mike. Shrugging, he said, "Okay." Mike felt like he'd been beamed into another universe. Abby was going to cooperate? Abby rocked up onto her tiptoes and gave Vanessa a nice smile. "Nice to meet you." She turned and skipped down the hall. "You too," Vanessa called. Vanessa and Mike both watched Abby go. When she disappeared in the room, they looked at each other, and they both spoke at once. "What are you doing here?" Mike asked. "Someone broke into Freddy's," Vanessa said. "Say what?" Mike thought. Vanessa's question won. "Seriously?" Mike said. "What happened?" Vanessa shook her head in disgust. Mike noticed that the sunlight made streaks in her hair and that flashed like a slight streamer. "From the look of the place," Vanessa said, "World War III." Mike couldn't process that. He was distracted by the light show of Vanessa's up-twisted hair. "We got a call," Vanessa said. "Apparently someone drove by and saw that the front door was open." Staring at the word "apparently," Vanessa's voice took a different tone. Gone was the light and friendly, and her words became chip and severe. Mike glanced up at Vanessa's face. Her lips looked like they weren't even capable of smiling. They were curved of stone and threatened to crack when she went on. It doesn't look like anything was taken, but whoever was there sure had their fun. She was back to full-on cop mode, Mike realized. Her eyes were narrow. She was expecting him like he was a criminal suspect. He was half tempted to ask if he needed a lawyer. Mike's shoulders stiffened. He clenched his teeth and ground out. "Well, those cameras are everywhere. They must have recorded something." "They did," Vanessa crossed her arms. "They captured 8 hours and 42 minutes of static." She lifted a brow and looked at Mike questioningly. No doubt about it, Mike was the suspect. She was interrogating him. Mike had been joking around with himself that he thought about asking for a lawyer. Now he realized this wasn't a joke. Even so, it was laughable. And annoyingly, Mike was tired of being accused of being a screw-up. "All right," Mike snapped. "Okay, so just so we're clear, you're suggesting I had something to do with it." Mike fingered her baton. "Give me a break," Mike thought. "Are you saying you didn't?" Vanessa asked. Mike lost his temper. "Of course I didn't," he shouted. Vanessa put her chin up and raised both eyebrows. She lifted the hand that wasn't caressing her police baton. She held out a hand, palm up. Mike looked up and saw his prescription pills bottle. It was empty. "Recognize this?" Vanessa asked. As an engine revved in the street, Mike glanced past Vanessa and saw his neighbor's shiny new red SUV rolling past. Great. The news of his arrest would be passed all through the neighborhood. No doubt Jane would have a win with this. Hell, she's probably already knew. Mike, who had been working up the head of a steam that had heated up his cheek, felt the blood drain away. He was sure he was probably looking at me. I'm guilty pale. He swallowed and tried to work up enough saliva to speak. When he finally did, he structured out his response. It it's not what you think, he said, sounding like it was exactly what she thought. Vanessa gave him a disbelieved look. He couldn't blame her for it. Mike tried again. They're sleeping pills, he said. I take them to sleep. I knew that wasn't exactly a stellar proclamation of righteous innocence. A night guard who took sleeping pills on the job wasn't a pillar of virtue. I know what they are, Mike, she said. It's written right on the bottle. She didn't say, duh, but her tone got a sentimental across. Mike couldn't come up with anything to say. He was busted, and he knew it. His shoulders slumped, and he hung his head. But then he felt a stirring of noise in his belly. Okay, so he's been sleeping, but nothing had happened while he slept. The place had been fine where he left. How was the break-in his fault? The thought gave Mike words. It wasn't my fault, he said. Vanessa snorted. Newsflash. If you whacked out to remember to lock the dang door when you leave your shift, accident or not, you're liable. It's called criminal negligence. You were there too, Mike said. Vanessa brisked. I left the building before you did, and it's your job to lock up. Mike frowned. But I did. Mike winced at the what in his tone. Vanessa sighed. Her face softened just a little. Maybe a wine had made her feel sorry for him. The cop's eye of Vanessa retreated a bit. Her hand dropped away from her baton. Her lips were no longer granite-like. She even reached out and put a hand lightly on Mike's forearm. Maybe he was on his side after all. When Vanessa spoke, her voice was gentle. Mike, what the hell were you thinking? You're a security guard. Literally, your entire job description is do not go to sleep. Mike looked at the warped wood floor in the front of the door. He really needed to take better care of his place, but when and with what money? Mike was distracting himself. He sighed and looked up at Vanessa. You wouldn't understand, he said. Vanessa pulled back her head. So help me understand. She said, explain it, because the second I file the report, the whole thing will be on my hands. Mike glanced down the hall towards Abby's room. He looked back at Vanessa. How should he handle this? Could he trust Vanessa with his story? Vanessa watched Mike steadily as he vacillated. He probably didn't have much more time before. Hey, Mike said, deciding. You want to walk with me? Vanessa looked startled. Then she frowned and looked down the hall. Your sister? Mike pointed through the front door. Vanessa turned and looked towards the large concrete V that stretched away from Mike's house. From an outside of the street, it was a storm-thrown runoff. We only go that far, Mike said. I'll be able to see the house from there. Vanessa hesitated, then she nodded. Sure. Mike followed Vanessa out the house. He closed and locked the door. Then he held her down his driveway and across the street. Gossiping a stride of gravel, he offered Vanessa a hand, and he helped her up the cascade and buck that ran along the narrow concrete storm drain. The trout was filled with a brown, sludgy stream of water. Not exactly Venice, Mike thought. Sometimes I sit over here, Mike said, just stirring the green slob. Game? He asked. Vanessa looked at the scuffled grass. In spite of the recent rain, truffles of green weren't wet. The sun had drained them out. Sure, Vanessa lowered herself to the ground, adjusting her utility belt with a snappy creak. They sat together in silence for a couple minutes. The sun settled on the back of their shoulder. Mike thought it felt like a warm blanket. The water in the storm trickled down past. In spite of its constant motion, it has a stagnant pond odor. Maybe not the best spot for a heart-to-heart talk, Mike thought, but then, what did he know about heart-to-heart talks? It wasn't like he had a lot of them. Mike cleared his throat. He might as well go for it. I used to have a brother, Mike said. His name was Garrett. Mike glanced at Vanessa. She was just a couple feet from him, close enough to him to enjoy the vanilla apple flower scent he noticed before. She sat with her knees drawn up, her arms wrapped around her legs. She was at an angle, half facing the view, and half facing Mike. Her gaze was steady and focused only on Mike. He squirmed a little, but he kept going. When I was 12, Mike said, a little older than Abby is now, Garrett got taken. Kidnapped. Vanessa made a little sympathetic sound in the back of her throat, but she didn't speak. She just waited. I was there when it happened. Mike went on. I saw the car drive away, but the driver, the license plate, I couldn't tell the police anything useful. So, they never found the guy who did it. The guiltiness and helplessness Mike had felt back then, and had carried with him ever since, slapped him like an actual blow to the face. He rubbed his jaw and managed to say, his voice breaking, they never found my brother. Vanessa still didn't say anything. Mike forced himself to go on. So there's, this theory. He hesitated, trying to figure out how to explain it. It's psychologically, I guess. Maybe neurologically, whatever. It's a theory that we never forget things, even when we think we've forgotten. We haven't. Vanessa frowned, obviously not tracking. Mike needed to do a better job of explaining things. Basically, Mike said, the theory says that all the events we experience, everything we've seen, all of it, even down to the tiniest detail, are stored somewhere in our brain. In our, what do you call them? Our neural pathways, like the brain's highway. The stuff might seem as if lost, but it's not. It's just buried. No memory is actually gone. Memories are always reliable. You just need to know where to look. Vanessa nodded. She seemed to be getting it. You're talking about witnessing something. We deal with that all the time in law enforcement's trauma and buried stuff. Exactly, Mike said. Vanessa nodded again. So your brother, you think you saw the person who took him? Mike shifted to face Vanessa. I know I did, he said, and I know the creep is in here. Mike tapped his head. Buried somewhere. Vanessa nodded again, this time more empathetically. Mike hurried on, wanting to get all out while she was still following along. So every night, he said, I make sure I dream. I dream that dream, the one where I relive the kidnapping, over and over. I go back through it and I search for details. I look for anything that I might have missed at the time, or anything I might have seen but stuffed away before I could deal with it. Mike paused. He studied Vanessa's face. It was impossible to read. I tried explaining this to a couple of people, Mike said, and this is the point where they told me I was crazy. Mike waited, and because he was still watching Vanessa's face, he saw the instant translation. He'd seen this altercation before. It was unmistakable, the narrowing of the eyes, the sniffing of her mouth, the slight spasm of the muscles along her jawline. The woman sitting next to Mike was no longer the warm and supporting friend she felt like when she started talking. He was back to cop mode. No, Mike thought. It wasn't cop mode. It was something else. As Mike watched, mesmerized as Vanessa's earliest deepened noticing and hunt, they went from their usual soft, almost grayish blue into a deeper indigo. The color shift was so pronounced that it almost looked like computer generated. It was also enormously distinct. Mike felt like he was watching a human turn into... I know what crazy looks like, Mike, Vanessa said. Her voice was uncomfortably human, hard but human. What you're saying, that isn't it. Mike shook her head, she shook her head, and her gaze drifted past Mike's face. Her eyes widened, and her lower lip trembled, as if she was seeing what? Not even close to crazy, Vanessa said. From a nearby thick oak tree, which stretched its branch over the slowly moving storm water, a crow called. It flapped its wing and took off, dipping low in front of Mike and Vanessa, and then soaring away. And just like that, Vanessa was relaxed again. She reached into her pocket and pulled out Mike's pills. So these... Mike looked at the pills laying on Vanessa's palm. He shrugged. It's not easy finding your way into the same place every night. It's taken years of practice, and I still need help. The pills, he gestured at them, they help. So do other things. Familiar sounds, familiar sights. Vanessa smiled and nodded. Pining for fun, she quoted the poster. Visit Nebraska. Mike finished. He looked down, suddenly embarrassed. His embarrassment turned to surprise when Vanessa reached over and took his hand. Mike was so stunned that he almost snatched his hand back. A reflective movement. He was glad he didn't, though. Vanessa's hand was warm and soft. It felt heartening, but very welcome. I'm sorry, Vanessa said. Pressure welled up behind Mike's eyes. He felt them beginning to moisten. Clearing his throat, he turned and looked down the concrete trough, as if gazing at a glorious river instead of a musky storm drainage system. And speaking of storms, Mike was battling one that was stirring up within him, swirling like a forming hurricane over calm water. Years of regret and grief were blowing up inside of him, threatening to hit landfall and wreak havoc. Mike blinked away the tears and he wanted to spill down his cheek. And then, just like that, the emotions was quelled. The storm blew through. Or maybe Mike was just in the eye of it. Whichever, all he knew was that he was now clear, determined. Mike turned to face Vanessa again. When he spoke, his voice was strong. I can't change what happened to Garrett, he said. He's gone. That's on me. But the guy who took him, he's still out there. I know he is. Vanessa let go of Mike's hand, and if you find him, then what? She cocked her head. Just A reminder, you're still talking to an officer of the law. Her words sounded like a challenge, and Mike caught the hint of the twinkle in her eye. He smiled. Well then, officer of the law, you can kick his door down and throw him in prison, obviously. Of course, Vanessa said, but she shook her head. Not to burst your bubble, but I'm pretty sure I saw him in the dream. Wouldn't hold up in court. Vanessa and Mike grinned at each other, and Mike felt something inside of him. It was a palpable wow feeling that was much more intense than his casual appreciation of her beauty. And the zing felt like it was going both ways. The look Vanessa was giving Mike was one he had never seen before. Not directly at him anyway. His proctoration of her feelings was so strong that he felt himself lean towards her. Vanessa's cheeks flushed. She looked away from Mike. Your sister seems cool, Vanessa said. Is it just the two of you? And the moment was over. Okay. Mike nodded. Yeah, our parents are gone, he hesitated. How much should he share? Vanessa had returned her gaze to Mike. Her eyes had settled back into the usual soft blue. Encouraged, Mike kept going. Mom kinda went bonkers after Garrett was taken. She was gone. And I mean, not gone, but they called it a cryptic depression. She wouldn't speak, barely move for a long time. When she came out of it, she just sort of went through the motions. This continued on for even longer. She acted like a mom, but she wasn't the mom we used to be. When Mike paused, Vanessa didn't move. Her direct gaze pulled the rest of the miserable story out of him. And then she got pregnant, Mike went on, and suddenly I had my mom back. She was cheerful, energetic. She joked and laughed. The whole time she was expecting she was like that. I didn't know then. I found out after. She thought she was going to have her boy. In her mind, she was still broken, even though she was acting normal. The baby would be another Garrett. Vanessa nodded. Her lips were twisted. In sympathy? But the baby was Abby. Mike continued, and instead of being happy about her baby girl, Mom lost it. Worse than the first time. She just kind of wasted away. Our family, limp along like that for another 3 years or so. And then on my 15th birthday, Dad took off. Vanessa sunk in her breath. No, she whispered. Yeah, Mike said. I was already a screw-up mess. Hard to be a regular teen when you're dragging around a semi-truck full of guilt. And then when Dad was there, he didn't do much parenting. Mom was AWOL, spent most of the time in bed. I took care of Abby pretty much from time when she was born. But once Dad was gone, it was all on me, even figuring out how to support her. Then Mom died, and that was it for me. No college, no nothing. Mike pressing his lips together, once again holding back tears. Vanessa put her hand on Mike's thigh. The warmth flipped his focus from bad memories to good ones. You know, Mike said, when Gary and I were kids, my mom and dad, they were like the perfect parents you see on old TV shows. Lots of games, gave me lots of attention, family dinner every night. Mike bit his lip and lifted one shoulder in a half shrug. We even used to hold hands around the table and say grace. Vanessa squeezed Mike's thighs lightly. That actually sounds really nice, she said. Her words sounds genuine and maybe a bit melancholy. Mike sighed. I always thought it was silly, until it was over. Mike looked down the edgy slum and the clovers below them. For a full minute she said nothing. Mike, talked out, sat silently. The way it was with your parents before, Vanessa finally said. It was like you were happy. Mike nodded. And you and Abby, you still have each other, Vanessa went on. From where I sit, I say you're pretty lucky, college or not. Vanessa lightly bumped his knee with hers. Mike took that to mean she wasn't judging him for his bitterness. Mike smiled to her. Vanessa returned the smile and she gazed at him steadily. Vanessa's attentiveness drained the remaining tension from Mike's body. He felt more relaxed than he had in a long time. But then once again, the blue in Vanessa's eyes got darker. In her focus, while still on Mike, blur. She felt like she had drifted off in her mind. He sensed a strangely strong disconnect, something that had cut the line that was forming between them. That something, Mike thought, hinted a secret, something hidden in Vanessa's past. Would she share it with him? The police radio clipped from the shoulder of Vanessa's uniform, quite static. Vanessa tensed and glanced down at it. Did you always want to be a cop? Mike blurted. He wanted to jumpstart a proposed connection with her again. Vanessa shifted her gaze to Mike. Yes, she said. Mike waited to see if she'd elaborate, but she didn't. Still, the one word had said enough. Mike was sure it contained a novel-sized story. Vanessa had reasons for wanting to be a cop. She wasn't, however, going to share them with him now. I always wanted to be a builder, Mike offered. A conductor. Maybe own a construction company. He blew out. Maybe in another life. Vanessa didn't say anything. Mike felt awkward, like he had overshared. I should go, Vanessa said. She brushed off her dark blue jeans. Mike stood similarly swiping his jeans. Fabric blades of grass and a few leaves sprawled around his legs and saddled his feet. Mike and Vanessa started walking back to his house. Mike glanced at her. What about your report? He asked. Vanessa lifted her hand. She held Mike's pill bottle. Mike tensed, but then Vanessa turned and tossed the pill bottle over her shoulder. It bounced down the concrete side of the storm and drained, and landed in a dribble of junky brown water. It began tumbling away from them in a slow motion, spinning around and round. Promise me one thing, Vanessa said. Mike looked at her. She was leaning towards him, her iris once again dark blue, her eyes squinting forcefully. Mike almost physically recoiled from the power of her gaze. What? He asked. No more sleeping, Vanessa said. When you're at Freddy's, you stay alert. Mike nodded, but he was glad he didn't have a Pinocchio nose. He was lying. He wasn't sure if that was a promise he could keep.